Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning into RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. In this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm. I'm your host, Norm. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. Wait a minute, she's not here with our guest, Tracy Carney. And I'm just going to say, what's the fucking story? Because that's what we're talking about today is stories. And our guest is not here, so...
That's a good question. It's funny that you have like 5 guests coming and no one has showed up.
Yeah, 5 guests. They're playing a prank. April Fool's Day is not for another couple of weeks.
I mean, usually your guests are here on time, but on occasion they're 5 minutes late. So
yeah, well, I hope she's okay. But also, I mean, not for nothing, having a guest who's not here, that creates some kind of a story. The guest is here on time. It's like, oh, they're here on time. They're not here. It's like, well, what happened? I hope they're okay.
I mean, absolutely. Every single show that you've ever done, in fact, every show we do is a storytelling show, one way or another.
Really?
That's my feeling. Yes. I mean, we had, I remember we had the guest Ken Burns, the documentary filmmaker, on one of our shows, The Back Room. And the first thing he said is every single documentary he makes, they all have one major thing in common. They all just tell our stories. They're just about telling stories, whether it's jazz or country music or whatever it is. It's about people's stories.
Right. That's funny. And it dawns me, I should probably say, talking to Matt Rosenberg here, who is the brain, this station is his brainchild. And
it's a story too.
And that's a story too. Why don't you tell that story? How did this thing start?
Oh my goodness. I saw that you told the story the other day on Instagram Live.
Did I?
You did to somebody. I don't know who it was, but
I don't do Instagram Live.
Well, you did the other day.
I did? Crap. I didn't know that shit was recording.
It's a story you had no idea that was being told.
Yeah.
Well, you know this story. You know the story. Some people know the story. I'll tell it really quickly. The station came out of the concept of building community after the pandemic, where we had built a little bit of community around a cocktail window and giving out cocktails and bringing people together. It seemed like, we still needed to bring community together. And that's where this concept came from, mostly.
Uh-huh. And so you had the idea, and how did it land here at the Epicurean, the corner store in beautiful Rhinecliff, New York?
Yeah, I mean, this is the only place I even conceived of it existing. That partly came from Roberta's Pizza in Brooklyn, having gone there and seen the Heritage Radio in the back of the pizza place. They, too, have a radio station in the back of a...
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, Roberta's Pizza is a rather prominent pizza restaurant. It's a really good restaurateur. He has many restaurants now. And they have Heritage Radio, which streams live out of their back of the pizza parlor. It's a very important food-based radio stream that was put together by Heritage Foods, the person who started Heritage Foods. Basically, it's a concept of building community around food, of course, at a pizza parlor. And so this being the center of Rhinecliff, the corner store, the Epicurean, it made the most sense to be right there to tell stories with people coming and going into the store, because we don't have anything else like this.
And for people who don't know Rhinecliff, there's the corner store, there's the Hudson River, the train tracks, the Rhinecliff train station. There's a restaurant down there, Kip's Tavern, and then you come up block and there's the corner store, the Epicurean. Then there's the post office, and then down the street is the library, and it's all around this little triangle. It's a memorial of some sort.
Yeah, it's a World War II memorial. I think it's multi-war memorial. It might be World War I and II. I forget, actually. I should know that.
And small towns or villages don't always have sort of like such a clear center to them.
Yeah, I think the thing about Rhinecliff, when I try to compare it to things now, I tell people it's kind of like the Fisher-Price Village. There's kind of one of everything. There's like the little post office. We have a little library. We have, it's basically everything you need to be a tiny community.
Right.
Including a radio station.
And so how did it land here? I mean, this is Cliff and Patricia's place. Let's give them a shout out.
Of course, Cliff and Patricia, who run the Epicurean, incredible store that it is. I proposed the idea to Patricia at first. I think she bounced it off Cliff. And they both, being the amazing people that they are, realized it was a pretty good idea. I mean, for many reasons. One, they are all about community, and that's what they do in everything they do. And it doesn't take much room. It's the tiniest studio in the world. I mean, maybe there's a smaller studio, but not much. Not for what we do. Considering what we do in here,
Right.
I don't think you could get much smaller and get this much production out of it.
Yeah. It's an amazing studio. And how long have you been here? How long have you been broadcasting?
About 3 years.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy because you were the very first show.
I can't even believe it was almost 3 years ago. What was the date of our first show?
You know, I think it was in October 2021, roughly, in that or September, late September 2021.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have it in my head, but it's something like that.
Right. Huh. 3 years. And so 3 years in September, that's really sort of mind-blowing to me.
I know, it's crazy. You've done more than 100 shows. I mean, I think about all of the people you've had come and go in here and telling their stories, all of them telling their stories.
Yep.
And I've said to other people, if you ever wanted to move to Rhinebeck and you didn't know the community, you just go to your show and listen to all of them. You're going to know everybody in the freaking world that's here. You're going to
love that so much.
You're going to learn you could not immerse yourself more in a community than just by listening to your archive.
Right. Oh, that's great.
Kind of like a time capsule of the area.
Yeah. I love that. So we're talking about stories and storytelling because I should probably also say this to try and make the story complete. Because tomorrow at the Morton Memorial Library and Meeting House or Community House, what's their
Community
House is a thing called March Monologue Madness, and it's being directed by our truant guest. And it starts at 7:30. It's a fundraiser for the Morton Library. And I was there. I saw it last year, and they had like 10 or 11 storytellers, and it's really, really good. It was so good last year, and this year I got a hunch it's going to be at least as good.
And what time is that?
Oh, and it starts at 7:30 tomorrow, Saturday, March 23rd, and you can just show up, and it's admission by donation. Donate, give till it hurts. Also, if you want, you can still give to the RadioFreeRhinecliff.org fundraiser online at RadioFreeRhinecliff.org.
GoFundMe, which is always happy to get something.
So Matt and Jen, since you've been doing this, what are some of the best stories that you've heard?
They vary from a couple of different shows. Yours being one of them, actually. You've had some guests which have told some incredible stories, which I think I would say between you, there are other shows too. Gyno Curious has had some shows where we've had guests on. I think that we both were crying on multiple occasions.
Yes.
And who does Gyno Curious?
Gyno Curious is Dr. Amy Novat.
Right.
Who's an OBGYN.
Right.
And then there's
props to the hosts every chance you get.
Thank you, Norm. And
Yeah.
then she has an offshoot called Vulva Views.
Oh, Vulva
with
Views.
Allison Chalwa.
I hope she doesn't have more shows because my mind is sort of filling in some other titles. And
Well, you should give her some ideas.
yeah, sure.
She should do them.
So Vulva Views is with Allison Chalwa, who's a therapist.
Yes.
And what do they talk about?
They talk about the whole range of subjects that women might be interested in, from, say, dressing, like clothing, to menopause, to cancer, the whole gamut.
Okay.
But with two different perspectives.
Right. So you mentioned Gyno Curious. There were some stories that Dr. Amy Novat had that just
Laurel.
brought you
Laurel
to
definitely
tears.
comes to mind.
So can you tell him a little bit about Laurel's story? Because that is just that we were both crying.
Yeah, Laurel's actually an old friend, and she came on to tell her story about a very difficult birth. And that was, after her child was born, she was in
The
ICU for months and months. And the struggles that she had to deal with from the moment she was told there was a problem to the moment she got out of the hospital were immense and just heartbreaking. It practically brings me to tears right now.
And the problems was with her. The baby was okay.
No.
The complications, yeah. I mean, baby is wonderful, now, but
Oh, good.
there
Breathing
Years.
a sigh of
Years.
relief.
Years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was the baby born with some sort of congenital disorder that like made the first couple of years especially?
There are issues. I don't want to speak for her,
Okay.
but there are a number of issues that were complicated.
But if people wanted to hear this, they could go to Radio
The
Free Range
first
of that
episode of Gyno Curious.
Oh, it was her first episode.
Because we wanted to come out with a very powerful story to introduce the show.
Now, and was that intentional? You're like, let's
Yes.
start off with like a really strong story.
Well, one of the things we do with all the podcasts, we didn't do it with you because we started live with you and there was no taping. But with most of the podcasts, when you
right.
start it, you will record 2 to 7, I'm just making up a rough number, episodes. And, most people who've never done a podcast before aren't necessarily the most compelling storytellers. They're not they haven't refined that skill.
Right.
Or they're not a great interviewer, or they're okay, but they can do better. So when you want to start a podcast, and if you record 5 of them, you kind of want to choose the one that's going to be really the greatest impact, the best to start with.
Right.
And so that is how that happened.
Huh. Very interesting. Now, podcasts, so you do some shows live and other shows are recorded. Do you call them all podcasts?
For the most part, yes. But they're all, really the way it's going to be very soon is everything that is not licensed music is a podcast. And if it's licensed music, it's a different kind of stream.
It's a what?
A different kind of stream. It's done with a service that's not technically a podcast, but it might as well be the same thing.
Okay.
It just can't be distributed at all the podcast services because of the licensing of music.
And so how do you find out if music needs to be licensed or if
Almost
it's...
everything that is modern in any way, shape, or form, you have to pay either the performer or the person who composed it or wrote it or both. So you need a different licensing service for that. And there are no podcasts that have the Beatles on them unless Paul McCartney is on the podcast and approves it.
Right.
So that's basically it.
Does he own it? Why did he think that Michael Jackson bought some Beatles catalog or something?
I think they bought some back, but I'm just giving that as an example.
Okay.
It's like whoever it is, if they're the artist itself and they can approve the use of it, that's totally fine.
Right. So Dr. Amy Novak did this story. It was a tearjerker.
Yes.
And it actually, and turns out that the mother, Laurel, and the baby both ended up okay.
Yes.
So now I'm going to tell this story, which is one of my favorite anecdotes of Ernest Hemingway having a bet with somebody. I could tell a story that'll make you cry in like 6 words or whatever. Some bar bet. I always imagine it in sort of like a dusty bar in Barcelona or wherever. And the story, and the friend said, no way. And the story Hemingway purportedly came up with was for sale, baby shoes never used.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah. See, we're getting something like tears from Jen Hammoud here.
Yeah, there's a Gregory Corso poem about a child and a baby coffin. Mrs. Lombardi's month-old son is dead. I heard it through. I can't remember all the words, but it's a very short poem about a very short-lived infant.
Right. Oh, so sad. Hang on one second.
Sure.
Talk amongst yourselves.
I can talk. So some of Norm's episodes and storytelling that stand out in my mind. One was Pete Veru, who I had never met before, but my goodness, what a varied and unusual life he led, and the story. And he is a very good storyteller.
Yeah.
I was really impressed, from like being a musician to a Wall Street guy to getting his PhD in something so esoteric I can't even recall.
Yeah.
And studying another language so he could translate.
He studied
the
like
text.
3 different languages.
Crazy story.
Dutch, Old Dutch,
Yeah,
French.
It was a great story.
Yeah. And hang on. Joe Bear says he's going to come, so we'll squeeze
excellent.
him in somehow.
Okay.
Still no word from the woman who was supposed to be here, Tracy Carney.
And what about funny stories? Like what stands out? What stands out in your mind? Do you have any that?
This is one of the things
that you recall?
Thinking about this before I came down and thinking of questions to ask guests. it's not, for me, it's not funny stories, it's funny storytellers.
Funny storytellers. Okay.
Because I tend to not remember the stories as much as I remember the feeling.
Sure.
And of course, that's one of the powers of stories. They make you sad, they make
point.
you happy, they make you knowledgeable about something, they make you feel a certain way about a person or a brand or whatever, a movie or a song.
I mean, when you had Joan Juliet Buck on, she had some extremely funny stories. As I
Oh,
remember.
yeah. Well, she's a professional. She's coming on later on
Right.
in this episode. But our first guest is here.
Amazing.
Yeah. Hey, Lawrence. Lawrence,
Here we are.
come on in. And this is Lawrence Miller.
So Matt, why don't you stay until the
Yeah,
producer
Matt, why don't you stick around? Lawrence, you're in this mic here. Thank you so much for being here.
Where else would I be?
Well, I don't know, but so we're just Tracy. I don't know what the hell happened to her.
Was she supposed to come?
She was supposed to come, and she didn't. And
What
it's sort of a
time?
great start for an episode about stories, because immediately we're like, "What the hell happened?" Which is a great thing to think about for a story.
Tracy's
so
Tracy,
you're a
yeah.
storyteller, and you're also producing or co-directing or something.
I am the producer. I am Bialystok and Bloom.
Yeah. So what is L Squared Productions?
Elsewhere, actually, I do it with Linda Sales. She and
Okay.
I have been working together for a while. We started, I don't know, when was the pandemic? How many years ago? We started before that doing short plays, having short play festivals, which were great. And then the last one was literally like 3 weeks before everything shut down. So, I thought about it over time, and I said, well, what would be fun to do that hasn't been done that's easier than putting together? Because plays are hard to put, the playwrights have to find actors and directors, and there's
Right.
a lot more involved. So I had this idea of like monologues, and then it was March, and it's like March Madness. Not that I'm into football. I mean, no, see,
Basketball.
I'm not into basketball. What do I know? So I approached Linda, and she was kind of like, yeah, let me think about that. And I just, yeah.
Do each of you have sort of a deeper background in storytelling or theater? Or?
Well, yeah, we met doing theater. I mean,
Okay.
mostly she's done some professional stuff. Mine has all been community, and yeah, but I don't really act that much anymore because I can't memorize any lines. So it has to be something with words on a page. So this fits the bill because no one expects monologues to be memorized, except for Joe
Right.
Bear. He always but
Yeah.
but look what he does with Mark Twain. So.
Right. Yeah, he's freaking amazing. And he's going to come in and talk with us.
would think
but
so.
he'll be one of the storytellers or monologists
Yeah,
or
right.
Short play
Along with you.
Along with me. And who's going to be there? How many stories will there
Okay,
be?
we've
And this
got-
is, let me just stump again. This is Saturday, 7:30 p.m.
Yes.
Show up to the Morton.
Tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Bring
Yeah.
your umbrella if you need to. It's gonna be wet, but don't let that keep
It
you
won't
from-
be wet inside.
No, not inside.
community
It's not
room.
going to be snow, so no one has any excuse not to come.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 11 monologists, writers, presenters. I'm not even sure quite what the right term is, but 4 people have come back. We did it last year. That was
Right.
the first time. And I really didn't have any great idea to do it again, but one of my friends, Prudence Garcia Renard, I don't know if you know her, she kind of prevailed upon me. She said, do it again, do it again. I said, all right, I'll do it again. So we have 11. 4 of you, including yourself, come back from last year, but we didn't plan it that way. What we did, we made sure that all the submissions were blind.
Oh, wow.
Actually, yours wasn't because it was video. But
Oh, geez. Sorry.
So yeah, but if we didn't like it, we wouldn't have taken it. So,
I believe you.
yeah. So it was interesting because other than that, we picked 3 other people just because we liked the material, and then found out who they were.
So most people submitted their writing.
They submitted him right. Yes, you and one other person did a video,
Right.
and she's in as well. But they submitted in writing, and then I go through it with Linda and Tracy. There's 3 of us, so that we can break any ties. Because if Linda and I
Love
just
that.
did, it's like you like it, I don't. You like it, I don't. So this way,
so
it's just
Linda's
majority rules.
You're co-producer of L Squared Enterprises.
Yes,
And
Linda.
and who's Tracy? And then we'll ask, where is Tracy?
Tracy, yes, where's
Again.
Tracy. No, Tracy is a very dear friend. We met doing a Neil Simon play at the Center about 11 years ago.
And she was acting in it.
Yes, she's unbelievable. Actor, director. I mean, there's nothing she can't do.
Right.
And again, I needed somebody that I knew and trusted to help us figure out what we're accepting. and she hasn't done any theater stuff in a while, and she wanted to get back involved. So, yeah,
Right.
but she doesn't want to be part of. She's rather modest, so she said, "No, don't put me down as L Squared Productions." I said we could do L Squared plus T.
Tracy Carney.
It would be a
Yeah.
an algebraic equation, but she didn't
L squared
like
plus
that.
T. Well, what would that equal? March Monologue Madness.
Great
guess.
fun.
Yeah, great fun. There you go. So she's an actress and a director. I met her. She was directing me in something. And for this, the March Monologue Madness thing, all of the readers, all 11, came in and did a rehearsal in front of Tracy and.
Well, some Tracy, some Linda. It depended who could show up. I'm not a director.
Okay.
I know my limitations, so I let them do that.
That's
But
right.
I have to say, most of the presenters, they really knew what they were doing. These are people that have done theater before.
Right.
So, I mean, there were a couple that, like one of your friends that, it was a new thing.
But I mean, yeah, which is great. God bless them for like doing this new thing.
Yep.
But I've done this a bunch, and I got such good notes from Tracy and Linda. Like, hey, what if you did this? What if you hit that word? What if you separated these two thoughts and allowed them?
But at the same time, it's not a performance like you're in a play where you really have to get detailed about, your presentation. Here you just want to make sure that it's getting across, that you're presenting it in the best light possible.
Right.
That you're enunciating. You're not looking down. That's a big thing, is not looking down at the script.
Right.
And, I mean, we don't expect people to memorize at all.
Which is great.
Right, but you need to be able to look up and make eye contact with the audience.
Because lots of things, lots of other sort of like story slams, like The Moth or The Porch up here at Catspawn, people have to memorize, and there's no notes allowed, which I don't quite understand.
Not in my world.
Yeah.
I don't ask anybody else to do what I can't do myself.
So you worked in theater, and at some point you're like, I can't remember all these freaking lines. Yeah. How old were you when that happened? And
No, it was a complete lark. I mean, it was about 12, 13 years ago. I was in the Reformed Church in Rhinebeck at some kind of class or whatever, and I heard music, Broadway music, playing in the parish hall. And I walked down and I said, "Oh, what's going on?" And this woman said, "Oh, we're holding auditions for Annie." I said, "Oh, it's a great show. I'll come and see it." She said, No, you need to audition.
I love that.
I said, "What are you talking about? I haven't been on the stage since I was 12 in the Mikado." And she said,
no way.
No, this is absolutely God.
Wait, let me just
Hand to
back
God.
up.
Yeah,
Let's
right.
stop here.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
were you doing the Mikado?
PS 115 in Queens.
Okay. That's
My mother
hilarious.
made the kimono for me, actually.
She did. I love that.
Yeah, So that was it. I mean, there was never anything like that. Never imagined I would do it, like most of the things since I moved up here. Teaching, library, all of that, So she said, "We need adult men," which I've come to realize they always need adult men.
Right.
So I went and they cast me as FDR, and it was fun. It was great, but it was still hard with the lines. So after that, I've always taken like tertiary parts, and I've called myself the king of cameos.
That's great.
So, yeah, but it was fun. I had a great time.
Is that on your business card?
If I had one, yeah.
A king of
that
cameos.
ended with Gray Advertising.
Oh, no way. What did you do at Gray Advertising?
I was in new business development,
Uh-huh.
and suit and tie, and looked out the window and said, "There's got to be something else than sitting in this office." So
And was it 777 3rd Avenue?
very good?
Yeah.
Why, were you there?
I was. I freelanced there for a number of years.
No shit. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, can I say that?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
It's the
I'm
internet.
Not, I'm
You
not
can-
in school. It's
you can swear all you
yeah.
want.
Right. Really? Wow. Yeah. So I left in '92, and I moved up in them thar hills to Fleischmann's.
Oh, wow.
And I opened a bed and breakfast. Yeah. So
What the fuck? Why did you go out to Fleischmann's?
because it was there.
Are you Hasid?
Orthodox. No.
Orthodox.
Ultra Orthodox.
So was
No.
that one of the part of the reason that you
No. It was only because it had been a big resort back in the 30s and 40s
Right.
for Eastern European Jews. But what I did was I opened this place to make it dog friendly.
Okay.
Yes, and I welcome guests with their dogs, which something now is like no big deal every place you go, but then it was a big deal.
Right.
So I just
So you moved up from New York City, you left Gray Advertising,
then
and you moved to Fleischmann's.
moved to Fleischmann's. Yes,
Opened a
bed and breakfast. Yeah,
that was
it
dog
a
friendly.
baby. Yes,
How long did you
dog-friendly,
do
yeah.
that?
I did that 10 years.
Uh-huh.
And then I said, this is enough. Everyone says, "What do you mean you left a bed and breakfast? That's my dream." I said, "You like cooking, you like laundry, You like cooking,
Right.
laundry, cleaning?
Right.
Don't knock yourself out.
Right.
So I ended it, and I said, well, where do I want to go? Seriously. And I said, well, I like upstate films, so I think I'll move to Rhinebeck.
Right.
Seriously.
Love that.
Yeah, 22 years ago.
Huh.
Yeah,
And well,
yeah.
what a treat! What a great place, and what a gift to the community your presence is.
Well, I didn't know what it would be. I mean, seriously, every single thing I've done since then was nothing I had ever imagined I would do. But
Did you have
makes
any
life
imagining of what you thought you would do
no,
when you got
none. I had no clue. I
Right.
just knew where I wanted to live, but I had no idea. And I was walking down the street in Tivoli. I was living there for a while.
Uh-huh.
And the woman who cut my hair came up and she said, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, this and that, whatever. And she said, why don't you try subbing? I said, subbing? How's that going to work? I said, I have no patience and I don't like kids.
Oh,
Yeah, 19 years later, I have patience and I like kids.
still so.
Her sons know that.
Wait, now you do like kids?
I do.
That's great.
Oh my God!
That's a good.
I have this incredible rapport. I mean, they're up. I mean, everywhere I go, Mr. Miller.
When I was a kid, I don't think
great.
they would hire substitute teachers if they didn't actively hate kids.
No.
They were all so mean.
They give me so much, I have to say.
Yeah.
They really do. And I love being there. And I mean,
Right.
they're coming up and hugging me all day. It's just great. It's great.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
Well, listen, Lawrence, thank you so much for being here. You can stick around for a little bit, but we're joined now by Joe Bear, who is going to be performing tomorrow night in the Morton Monologue Madness, produced by L Squared Enterprises. Hi, Joe.
How you doing?
Good. Thanks for coming at the last
Thanks
minute.
for inviting me.
Yeah, like 8 minutes ago. Thank you so much for being here.
No, I'm glad I just live up the street.
Yeah. So Lawrence was saying that most people read their stuff, except for you. You always memorize your script.
Well, I don't always memorize it, but I try to. I think if you have it, it's like if you're in a play and you can't really begin to act until you've got your lines under your belt. If you're holding the book or you have to constantly ask for a line, you're busy trying to think, what am I supposed to say next, as opposed to performing,
Right.
Becoming the character that you're trying to portray. So yeah, I do my best to get it down as close to in my head as possible. And fortunately, I'm lucky that way. When I did Samuel Clemens, that's 40 pages I had in my head.
Right.
So
I was going to just segue to that. You're a seasoned actor, and you had a one-man show in New York City, where you played Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens.
right. Yeah, and again, it's like you see. Even when the story is read, if selected shorts on NPR, they read short stories, but they always get a performer to read it, because I think you need that background, you need that ability to make your voice a character in the story. You need to
Right.
be able to express things as the emotion that's intended in the book,
Right.
as opposed to just reading it. And I think that's what makes this Monologue Madness a very exciting time, because we're very fortunate that so many of the people who have written the stories also read them. And
Right.
even last year, you could see that they all had. Reading your own story, of course, is easier than reading somebody else's, but they all had that quality where they were able to emote and make their story, bring their story to life, basically,
Right.
even though they were reading it.
Right. And some people read and tell the story nicely, and others, like, you really embody the characters, you really act it.
I try to, yeah,
And,
I try to.
and I was thinking, as preparing for the show, what are the elements of a good story? And there's all these things like, character and conflict and challenge and all this crap. But nobody said, when I was researching this, like, the acting, the performing of it really helps a lot.
Sure.
The delivery. I mean, if
Yeah.
you could have the best story in the world, but if it's delivered in a dry manner that's not accessible, it's going to fall flat.
And you're delivering somebody else's story tomorrow.
I am, which...
And Linda's doing somebody's story.
Yeah, Linda's doing. So it's interesting because neither Linda or I have a piece in it this year. We did last year.
Okay.
So now we still get, because we like to be up there. So
That's great.
Well, you both have the acting background. You've done your share of acting earlier in your life, and
And Joe,
And
do you?
Norm, you're just a natural actor. So
Yeah, well, thanks. I don't know if that's a good thing, but you were you an actor acting other people's words prior to this stint as Mark Twain, which has gone on for?
well, I was doing his words, obviously, and then the majority of that piece is his words, and I have written the pieces that tie it together.
Right.
So, but the majority of it is from his own pen.
Okay.
So, I actually I thought that I should give him credit for the writing, and I thought I should give Hal Holbrook some credit for the inspiration for the,
I was
what
gonna
I
ask.
do with Huck Finn at the end. I sort of act out an abridged version of the story, which he actually did in his Mark Twain Tonight.
Right.
He concentrated more on the Huck-Pap relationship. I think we talked about this when I was here last time, and I concentrated more on the Jim the slave and
Right.
relationship. So
Nice. I just read somewhere some author. I'm trying to remember who.
He rewrote it from Jim's point of view.
Yeah.
It's called James. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, and I thought, well, wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
So Hal Holbrook, famous actor, and he was extra famous towards, I guess, the end of his career when he was older actor for doing Mark Twain, like everywhere.
play the president too in some sort.
Wouldn't be surprised.
I thought he did.
Hal Holbrook? Not that I'm aware of,
Okay.
but he might have. Sorry.
So was that the beginning of your fascination with Twain and Twain's stories?
Yeah, I mean, as I said when I was here the first time, I was just looking. I had done the one-man show about Clarence Darrow
Right.
as a fundraiser for the Grange, and when the very first talent show that they had at the library, I performed a character that I had done in a musical that we were trying to raise money to produce off Broadway.
Right.
And it went so well, I got so many people enjoyed it that I actually put together a one-man show based on that character, which really didn't turn out to be very good, but
Oh, no.
I enjoyed doing it nonetheless.
Right.
But that sort of got me hooked on doing these one-man shows that I've been doing. Right now I'm working on a script for about P.T. Barnum. So
Oh, fun.
yeah, he's
What a blast.
He's a tougher character to write about than Twain was,
How come?
Well, because he wasn't as he didn't have the natural, already written humorous stuff that I could fall back on about
Right.
him. He was obviously America's greatest showman, is how they refer to him in a lot of times. And he was a very unique guy. And, he exploited people that had physicality problems or appearance problems, but
Right.
he also helped them by doing that. I mean, Tom Thumb, he ended up being a millionaire of his time because of the money he made with P.T. Barnum.
It was a little person
Yeah.
who was in the Barnum and Bailey circus.
General Tom Thumb.
Right.
Yeah.
Love that. So you're doing a bunch of research to create
am
this
now at
next
this
show.
time, yeah.
And where will this show
Well, if it works out and I'm able to get it all down into a show, then probably at the library.
Oh,
because
good.
That's always the first place I go to sort of
what a
test the
treat.
waters on anything.
I love that. Well, listen. Hey, Gina.
Hey, Norm.
What are you doing? You're on the air. You're late.
I've got a cocktail.
Oh, good. Joe, if you could stick around. Larry's leaving. Larry Lawrence, our producer. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Tomorrow, 7:30.
Will we see pages or no pages with you?
All right.
probably have them in my hand, but I got all this.
All
Okay,
right.
Norm, where do you want Gina to sit?
Gina, right where Lawrence was. Gina, thanks for being here. Michael, there's a seat right behind you. You could sit on top of. Oh, would you, Joe? Would you be so kind to move that?
this?
That's perfect. You're 3 minutes late because 3 minutes ago we were talking about Mark Twain.
Oh,
And
damn it.
and yeah, because Joe does this Mark Twain
Yes,
thing,
love
and I
him.
thought, oh my God, there's my segue. She just came in the door, but I don't know what you're doing, like looking at stuff and shopping here at
Yeah, I
the
was
beautiful
shopping.
Epicurean. So what's your Mark Twain story? What's your connection to Twain?
I grew up in Keokuk, Iowa, and his brother Orion had a factory there, a printing factory. His mom lived there, and I read his diaries out in Berkeley, and he was kind of sweet on a girl from Keokuk and wrote letters to her. And I always wanted that person to be me.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
And
So I've always had a crush on him.
it's funny. And I happen to know
And Joe.
that tomorrow you're performing a monologue that has to do with sending letters.
Yes.
Yes.
Good connection, Norm.
Yeah, thanks. Thought of that all myself. But I wanted to ask you, I know you submitted a couple of stories to Lawrence and Linda and Tracy Carney, who are our guest, who's not here still. The plot thickens in this story. And they selected one of them.
I was so thrilled.
I was so thrilled.
I've only given speeches for political stump speeches and thanked the Boy Scouts for their food pantry donations, but this will be my very first time actually telling a story in public.
Right.
And I'm very nervous about it, but I'm super excited.
In private, you're a super accomplished and delightful and endearing storyteller.
I can tell a story.
Yeah. So what is it about standing in front of the crowd that's making you kind of nervous?
I don't know. First time jitters, I guess. But I think I have a couple of thoughts about storytelling. I've been thinking about it since being chosen. And I think Midwesterners and Southerners are the very best storytellers. No offense to the coasts.
Right.
Or that upper Midwest, but they're nowhere.
Upper Midwest.
Yeah.
We're looking at you,
Dakotas.
Minnesota.
Right.
Yeah.
No, in fact, one of my very favorite storytellers, Kevin Kling, not Kevin Kline.
Oh,
as
Kevin
everyone
Kling.
gets confused.
Yeah.
Kevin Kling is one of the best storytellers ever, and he's from Minnesota.
And there you go. I mean, there's an exception to every rule.
Yeah, and Michael Perry is one of my favorite writers, and his stories are also incredible.
And he's up that way, like
Wisconsin.
Fargo.
Wisconsin.
Does he tell them, or he just writes them?
He does tell them.
He
also.
does. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta look at the microphone when you talk, not at Joe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like looking at Joe.
So what was, do you want to tell us quickly the story that was not selected?
Oh, I can tell you the basic outlines of it.
Yeah.
Okay, my house was a pretty wild household growing up, and it involved a lot of kids, fireworks, and a lot of friends that were always there. And the Mississippi, we were in Keokuk, Iowa, where the Mississippi meets the Des Moines River, and it flooded every 10 years or so. It would flood and wipe out this little town of Alexandria, Missouri, right over the border.
Okay.
It was called Ellick. That's what everyone still calls it,
Ellick. And was there a bridge from Keokuk to Ellick?
Yeah. Yeah.
How
over
many-
the Des Moines River.
How many bridges came out of Keokuk?
2.
Okay.
And
Well, we had 3 in Cincinnati.
oh, yeah.
I know it's not a competition, but
I know. Winner.
yeah.
So it flooded, and Missouri allowed fireworks. Iowa did not.
Oh.
So it flooded all of the fireworks stands. So they put out
geez.
the word to everyone that wanted to come work to clear up these wet fireworks would be paid. And so my brother and all of his friends, my 2 brothers and all of their friends went down and mucked out mud and sludge and wet fireworks. And at the end of a couple of days' work, the guys said, would you like to be paid in cash or all the wet fireworks that you can take? So my brothers, being complete idiots,
Well, teenage boys. So,
will be teenage boys. They decided to be paid in wet fireworks. So
I love that
I was
so much.
sitting,
Ooh, wet fireworks. Yeah, we want that. No cash.
I know. So I, like the good girl I was sitting at the kitchen table doing my homework. My mom was making dinner. All of a sudden, the stove goes kaboom.
Right.
The door blows off the stove. My mom grabs me screaming, runs outside. She's thinking the house is going to explode, right? Like
Right.
some sort of
Big boom.
catastrophe. So then my brothers come running down the hill, and my one brother says, "Oh, I guess they got too hot." And my mom's like, "What got too hot?" My poor mom. And Alan said, "Well, we put the fireworks. They had stuffed the stove with wet fireworks, put it on broil,
Oh, smart.
and then went outside to play."
Yeah.
That's funny.
It was horrible.
Love
it was
that.
horrifying. So then their punishment, they had to go and pay for a new stove. And they weren't allowed to pay in wet fireworks for the new stove.
Bad. That currency is so widely accepted. It's the precursor to Bitcoin, I think.
Exactly.
So, Joe, were you from the heartland, from Twainville, or are you from around here?
No, I grew up in the Bronx.
Okay. So, what do you think about Gina's crap about Midwesterners having the best stories?
You know, I think everybody thinks wherever they come from, that's where the best storytellers come from. you
Right.
know?
Love that.
There's a story in there, I'm sure.
Right. Well, Joe, thanks for coming. Our next guest, Leslie, is here, and she's going to sit where you're sitting. Gina is now pouring the cocktails. Gina, why don't you talk right into the mic and tell us what you're pouring there?
Thank you for having
Thanks,
me.
Joe
I look
Bear.
forward
See
to
you
seeing
tomorrow.
us all tomorrow at the library at 7:30. It starts at 7 o'clock. The
That's
doors
right.
open, and
Donate
it's
what
for
you can. Give
for the
till it
library.
hurts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe Bear.
Thanks, Joe. See you tomorrow.
Okay, that's enough, Gina.
Leslie.
Is it?
Leslie Hill, come on in.
Leslie Hill.
Leslie, get your butt in here. Leslie Hill standing out there like telling a story when she should be in here telling a story. Hello, Leslie. How are you?
Leslie.
Now, Leslie, people who know Leslie know this to be true. People who don't, well, the hell with you, is one of the best storytellers I know. She has so many storytellers. And actually, I read this thing today looking up storytelling. Somebody said that really the thing about storytelling is just listening, waiting for a story to come into your life. And if you're a storyteller, and I like to tell stories, Leslie is the font of so much goodness because you talk in like all these stories. And I always just say, I'm stealing that. And Leslie's like, okay, go for it. And all my best stories came right from Leslie.
Better you than me, that's for sure.
Yeah. And speaking of which, you wrote a story that's going to be part of the March Monologue Madness, which we're, stumping mercilessly and shamelessly, 7:30 tomorrow at Morton. But you're not performing it.
That's right. Yep.
And Gina said she's nervous, and you're more nervous
I'm not nervous because I don't have to get on the
because
stage.
you're not doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel, if it were me reading it, and maybe I can get through it, but I'd be worried all day, every day,
Right.
until it was over. And so now I can enjoy it. Someone who's amazing is reading it, and I can just enjoy, what I made.
Who is this amazing person who's
This
reading it?
amazing person is Joan Juliet Buck,
Right.
who is an amazing storyteller.
Right.
An actress, a writer, an editor, and she just has a delivery that you're like, I'm obviously cool because look at this.
And so, what is the story? You wrote a story, as I understand it, about your husband Jeff.
That's
Is that
right.
what the story's about?
Yeah.
And friends read it and encouraged you to try to get it published or something.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's going to be performed tomorrow night.
Yeah.
And have you heard Joan perform it yet?
I have, yeah. Yeah, she's read it a few times in my living room, which was exciting enough. And then I got to see her rehearse.
Right.
And it was, from the stage with the microphone, and it felt like, wow. Like, it's so much better than I could ever do.
What a treat. I'm not sure I've ever heard words I've written be performed by somebody else. That must be kind of a blast.
Well, you're a great performer, so it's better coming from you. But for me, this is a dream, to have someone who's comfortable on a stage and comfortable telling a story and can just add everything to it.
Right. What a treat. Gina, what the hell's the story with this so-called cocktail?
Okay, it was late notice, but I did vodka with tangerine seltzer, a squeezed orange, and then
It was a
the
faint.
Not a
secret
tangerine.
is the Green Owl Farms saffron bitters.
Oh, that gives it the faint whiff of oatmeal taste.
Oh,
That's
is that
really,
right?
yeah.
Is that
That's
what that's
so
right?
so delightful in
I
a
know.
cocktail.
It's so good.
Bartender, make mine day old oatmeal. Well, thanks for bringing it.
You're welcome.
What a treat.
You're welcome.
Gina's the best kind of friend.
Gina is really one of the best friends ever.
Can I say something else?
No.
Yes, I can. The thing I think about storytelling is that being from Missouri, the show me state, it's because people lie so much and tell tall tales that
Right.
you have to show me and prove it to me. You're not supposed to believe anything that you hear, really.
Right.
So, and I think that that's true. I remember us all being crowded around my grandma, and she was a good storyteller, and she would tell us these stories about a goat falling through my grandpa's prized automobile that had a soft top cover, and the goat's 4 legs going through, and the goat was stuck in it. And it was just great stories. And then the stories that I tell my kids now have become their stories, and
Right.
it's just stories are
It's
your
funny.
life. It's a really wonderful chain.
But it's also your heritage and your culture and all those things and that help define a person. I mean, just thinking about stories, and I grew up going to church, and the Bible, a great source of stories and parables, and they all have little morals to them and all that crap.
Church leads to a lot of good stories too.
Religion of all sorts leads to a lot of good stories. Oh, what do you have, a church story you're not telling us?
Don't let her tell.
no.
Don't let her tell any church stories.
Leslie, why don't you tell us Gina's church story?
No. You don't want that.
Yeah.
Catholic Church will be on the phone in a minute.
Yeah, church, and church stories. Church is a place for one of my favorite kinds of stories, which is the story you shouldn't be telling because you shouldn't be talking to somebody you shouldn't be talking to. And then you get this thing, one of the best things in the world, which we call the church giggles. And I just think about the places where stories are told and how they're told. And again, tomorrow they're going to be told at the Morton Memorial Library at 7:30 right here in Rhinecliff. Give what you can. So Leslie, you, as I said, are one of the best storytellers, and I gave you some prompts before you came on, and I wondered if any of those were evocative. If you had any thoughts about storytellers in your life, who you loved or who you sort of inspired, or when you're telling a story, you think, oh, I'm sort of channeling like Aunt Nanny or Uncle Jim or.
Yeah. Actually, I thought about it, and Gina's one of my favorite storytellers for sure.
Get out.
But 2 writers that I enjoy are David Sedaris and Augustine Burroughs, and I find that I love funny stories, humiliating stories, stories that make us feel like, oh, it's okay, like they did this terrible thing or this embarrassing thing. And so it's all right, like it connects us as people, and it makes us laugh, and it makes us feel, okay,
Right.
about our humanity. And,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've read David Sedaris, those humiliating situations that he's been in.
So good.
And Augustine Burroughs, I remember one of my favorite stories was, he was a very heavy drinker, and now he's sober. But one of my favorite stories was how he hooked up with the Santa Claus. He woke up in bed with his Santa Claus.
Oh my God, I want to hear that.
And I thought, oh God, that's great.
I want to hear
feel
that
better.
next.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened to you, Leslie, actually.
Well, we don't
not
know.
so bad.
We don't know. It hasn't.
True.
Yeah.
And we only have one life, and we only have so much time, and we can't cover all
And
the ground.
Santa Claus is not without
That's
his
one thing that I
charms.
might not do myself.
Oh,
But he
please.
did it, and so it's like
Yeah.
I did it,
Love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, we're zooming through this hour with all these storytellers coming. So, Gina, thank you so much for coming and bringing
so
this
welcome.
drink.
You're so welcome.
You're being replaced with Joan Juliet Buck, who's here
let me
now.
Get her in. Okay.
Yeah.
Fancy.
And thanks, Gina.
Thanks, kids.
And and we've got hello, Joan Juliet Buck.
Like 30 seconds with me, right?
No, we've got 9 minutes.
Whoa.
Well, it's actually 8 minutes and 10 seconds. But we got you a cocktail, too. Gina made this delightful brew.
It's very beautiful.
It looks good. The presentation's nice. It's in a cup from the Epicurean.
Enticing.
Yeah. So, Joan, you're telling Leslie's story.
I am just Leslie's voice. Tomorrow night, it's Leslie's story. It's Leslie's words. It's Leslie's text.
Right.
And I'm just doing the voice for it.
And have you done that before? I mean, that's called acting, I guess, really.
Well, I've done the moth quite a bit.
Okay.
But that's my stuff. Yeah, narrating. In like about 20 years ago, this book publisher I know called James Crump was doing a documentary about Robert Mapplethorpe. And he asked me to do the narration. And I said, sure, because, I'd never done that. So I did it. And there's this movie called Black, White, and Gray about, it's actually Robert Mapplethorpe and his lover Wagstaff, Sam Wagstaff. So it was the first time I narrated something. And I do like narrating because I've done it quite a bit. When it's not my words, it's the words of someone else. And it's just serving somebody else.
Right. And you're an author for a
Yeah.
long time and a professional storyteller for even longer, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Have you ever narrated your books? Have you ever...
Oh, yeah, my memoir, I did an audiobook for.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and it was very funny because the publisher didn't know that I was trained as an actress, and so they
He should have read your memoir.
Well, yeah, this is true. It's there's weird little things that fall through the holes,
Right.
know, but it's between the chairs, as we say in French. So the time assigned to record the book was something like 9 days, and I said, I'm not going to need 9 days. And then I realized if I had 9 days, I could just redo every page I wasn't happy with. I'd say to the technician, no, I just want to try that again. So it's a perfectly recorded audiobook.
And we'll have to check it out.
Price of Illusion.
And in the doing of The Price of Illusion,
Yeah.
did you change any sentences as you're narrating? Be like, oh, I don't like the...
No, but I did do a few things because a misunderstanding is rife these days. So the woman who was the copy editor, who was German, there seems to be a tradition of German copy editors working in a language that's not their own. I suppose because they're precise and very bossy. So she had changed things to what she thought I had meant. So I'd find myself
Love that.
reading, something that I did 22 drafts of my memoir. And I remember coming to what I knew was the Atlantic crashed against the sea wall all night long. And it became the Atlantic 2 in italics, crashed against the sea wall. And I realized she thought I was talking about a yacht.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. But Leslie, there are no yachts in Leslie's story. I mean, the reason I am reading Leslie's story is that I didn't know Jeff well, but I knew Jeff from a distance, and I admired his spirit, his kindness, his intelligence, the way he was with people.
Yeah.
And he was one of the people I admired most around here.
Right.
So when Jeff got ill, may I tell the story about the convoy?
Of course, yeah.
So it was the spring of 2020, and we were all snails in our houses. And suddenly I look out the window and I see cars, many cars, one after the other coming to Rhinecliff. Now, as we know, nobody came to Rhinecliff during the beginning of the pandemic. We were sort of, the fabulous isolation ward. And I see these cars, and they keep going, one after the other, a line of them, a traffic jam of cars on Orchard Drive. And I go out, and I say, hey, hi, guys, what are you doing? And they say, we're going to see Jeff. He starts chemo tomorrow, and we want to wave at him. And there were about 80 or 100 cars. And I thought, this guy who I admired from a distance, who I appreciated from a distance, his friends are coming here just to wave at him across the garden before he does chemo.
Right.
This guy is huge.
Right.
He's made a difference. He's affected people.
Right.
And so that day I walked down when the sort of endless convoy had ended. I walked down and there was Jeff, who, as I said, I hardly knew, and Leslie, and he came out into his garden and he gave me a hug, and it was the first time a human being had touched me in like 2 months. So I think there's something that Jeff carried that was the spirit and the heart of what's best about humanity.
Right.
And that's why when Leslie asked me to read her text,
Right.
like, of course, what a privilege.
Right. What a treat. Now, in addition to being a writer, you're also an editor of some renown.
Well, I mean, there was a fluke. I was blocked on a novel. I couldn't get into my third novel, and so I futzed around for a few years because my whole thing had been, I'm a novelist. I just do magazine work. It's like the way other people do waitressing. And then suddenly all I could do was the waitressing magazine work. And then I was offered French Vogue, so I said, okay, fine.
Okay.
I'll go edit French Vogue because I'm blocked on a novel.
So my question is this: as an editor, you and Leslie worked together in this.
Well,
did you have ideas, and how did you feel sharing ideas on such a personal story?
How did you feel about what I said, Leslie?
Oh, I felt like it was a dream come true to have someone who's so passionate and talented in my living room with like the sun coming in. And I said, I'm not that good at editing. And she said, I am.
Yeah, I am.
I love that.
And so say, like, she would, I can't remember anything exactly.
It's line
but she
edits. It's just line edits.
She would say, end the sentence this way because you have the audience here.
Well,
and then you'll bring them there. And
there's a lot of things that I learned when doing the audiobook and that I learned, remember, at Radio Free Rhinecliff, there are 43 chapters of a serial novel on Radio Free Rhinecliff.
Oh, yeah. Of your serial novel.
Yeah, Little Bird. And I learned when I was writing Little Bird certain things like if you're going to be speaking it, when you write, you will write, quote, don't be so silly, unquote, he said. But no, you can't have the don't be so silly before the he said. You got to start with he said, don't be so silly. Also, never end on a vowel. Always end on a consonant because it's more peppy.
More what?
Peppy.
Peppy.
Yes, because if you end on a vowel, it's just a question of tone.
I love that. All right, words of wisdom from editor, writer, and tomorrow night performer, presenter, reader of Leslie Hill's wonderful story, which will be part of March Monologue Madness program at the Morton Memorial Library beginning at 7:30. Turns out it's going to be recorded, and eventually the monologues will be presented here on radiofreerhinecliff.org.
awesome.
Joan Juliet Buck, thank you so much for coming. Leslie Hill, thanks for coming. Everybody else who's gone already, thanks for coming and leaving on time. And our prayers and hopes go out to Tracy Carney, who was a no-show, and I know, which is kind of the story. Everybody have a great Friday night, fabulous weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.